forms to the assessor. Yeah, to get the gems assessed. It would be valuable to know their value. But you haven't yet. Well, if you could get on that, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, we'll take care of it tomorrow. Yeah, we'll take care of it tomorrow. Anyway. Salutations, everyone. Allow me to adjust this music. Today we're using the other background music. I hope that everyone can hear me okay. Testing, testing. You see, I'm here in a different room today because we're talking about a totally different thing. My library of many dusty tomes, many different books on all sorts of different subjects, but today we're dusting off the tabletop tips. I'm a little quiet, but the sound is clear. Let me try. How about this? Is that a little bit better? Can you hear me clearly? Tabletop tips, that's right. Okay, excellent. So, I don't intend for this to be a very long stream, not like the Minecraft streams that will go on for several hours, but I wanted to go over some of the resources that I use as a... Oh, the music is a little bit loud still. Okay, let me turn that down. There we go. Okay. As for the microphone, I can turn that up a little bit. Is that sounding a little bit better? Excellent. Okay, good. Thank you, Lex Crown and Swift James 7 for being here. I really appreciate you guys helping me make sure that the quality of the sound is good. This is the first time using this background music in a normal speaking stream, so I'm excited. I really enjoy this tune. It's nice and soft and soothing, so I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So once again, salutations everyone. I am Riley Arlick, and today we're talking tabletop tips. And specifically, we will be talking the various resources that I use as a dungeon master or game master in various games of tabletop role-playing games. For example, Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder. These could also be used for other games, Call of Cthulhu, or... now I'm forgetting some of the names of others. Starfinder. And so on and so forth. You get the idea. Anyway, we're going to dive right in. So I'm just going to float my way over here, and I am going to show you all a screen. Poof! There it is. Okay. We can dive right in to the very first resource that I want to talk about. So keep me posted if anything seems to be going weird with the stream, but otherwise I am going to simply charge forward. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know as we go. I will do my best to answer them as we proceed. So let's see here. This, and this. Very good. So this very first website, and all of these resources are going to be websites, and all of the links for them are in the description below. I have not really posted them in any particular order, but the order through which I will go through these is the same as the order of the links below. So if you want to follow along, feel free to click those links as I go through. So here we have NPC Generator, and oh my goodness, has this website saved my buns more than I would like to admit. As a DM, it falls to you to play as many of the non-player characters, the NPCs, the villagers, the farmers, the soldiers, the nobles, and other creatures that exist in your world and can interact with the players. So here, this NPC generator is what I will often use to quickly come up with those NPCs so that my players have something more interesting to interact with. As you can see right off the bat, when you enter the website, it will already have an NPC generated for you. Here we have Hadrian Woodleaf, is a 23-year-old male human monk. He has long braided auburn hair and brown eyes. He has rough red skin. He stands 170 centimeters or 5'6", and has a beefy build. He has a square, bland face, and he fidgets constantly. So, basic physical description, a good way to introduce your players to the character. You can simply read this straight down. There's personality traits that you can then absorb as you go. He discreetly worships Torm, god of duty, loyalty, obedience, and paladins, and he's lawful good. He is very benevolent. He is very cowardly, and he spaces out often lost in thought. So a benevolent, cowardly worshiper of the god of law. Interesting. That's a curious combination there. It does also give you ability scores, relationships, including orientation and the relationship status of the character, and alignment tendencies. So you can see his alignment actually, despite worshipping Torm, the god of duty and loyalty, actually has a very high evil score for some reason, and a very high lawful score as well. Perhaps that plays into his cowardly aspect. And at the very bottom, we have a plot hook. He is addicted to air elemental blood. I don't know how he's going to find so much air elemental blood, especially if he's addicted to it, but perhaps that's something that the players could discover as they go. As you can see on the left, we have different options for the race, the sex, the alignment, the plot hooks, and the occupation. So going down, you can see that the races are not exhaustive. Many of these are the common races that you'll find in Dungeons & Dragons, the ASMR, Dragonborn, Halfling, Goliath, Goblins. There's no kobolds, unfortunately. That's one thing that I think that this website could do to add, but there are Tieflings and Tabaxi and Orcs, and so on and so forth. I didn't think air elementals even had blood. That's a very good point. I don't think they do as well, but maybe there's a way that this character, or perhaps a character that he's related to, Hadrian Woodleaf, has discovered a way to create air elemental blood. That could be something very interesting to add to a campaign. Then, of course, sex, male, female. They're not super inclusive, I suppose, but we won't get into that. Alignment, good and evil. So no neutral, unfortunately. Plot hooks, random, classic, and funky. So classic are plot hooks that you would typically find in a D&D campaign, whereas funky are very strange sorts of plot hooks. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. And finally, occupation. And this breaks down into several different occupations. You have class and profession. So class are the typical classes: artificer, barbarian, bard, cleric, etc., etc., including mystic and sorcerer, warlock. The profession are a little bit more exhaustive: learned, lesser nobility, professional, working class. And if you click on one of those, it'll give you another drop down box that can create, or that will give you a lot of other options. So for example, if we have working class, then you have boat, coach, farmer, gravedigger, peddler, miner, and so on and so forth. So you really have a lot of control over the kinds of NPCs that you can generate. And before we go any further, I did want to mention that none of these websites are sponsoring me. Not a single one of them. I'm doing this completely on my own. These are websites that I found as a dungeon master and or a game master, and I really enjoy using these particular websites. None of them have sponsored me. None of them have convinced me to convince you to praise them or so on and so forth. So keep that in mind as we go. I can speak ill or well of any of these websites. I'm under no obligation to speak in any particular way. Anyway, so let's say that we wanted to get really specific. Let's say we wanted a dwarf, a mountain dwarf even, and we wanted a male, and we wanted a good dwarf with a funky plot hook, and his profession is a, let's say, an underclass profession, and that he is a bandit. So he's a good bandit, perhaps a Robin Hood sort of dwarf here. Let's hit generate and see what we get. Dwali Bloodgrip is a 68-year-old male mountain dwarf bandit. He has very long curled white hair and blue eyes. He has veiny gray skin. He stands about 4'4" and has a massive build, so very, very thick boy, very thick dwarf. He has a square, ordinary face, and he also has a tattoo of a goat on his left hand and a tiny tattoo of the lyrics of a song quote about music on his left arm. Interesting. He discreetly claims to worship Cyric, but secretly worships Tyr, god of justice. Now, both of those are good gods, so that's kind of interesting. Perhaps there's some sort of cultural war between those gods where he lives. He always has a backup plan. He's very talkative. He's always covered in dirt for some reason. He feels uncomfortable in a rich setting. That seems appropriate for somebody who's a bandit. He gets very mad at any semblance of an insult. So, if you say something that he could take it as an insult, then he may get rather livid really quickly. Very interesting. You see, he has his stats, his orientation, and again, his alignment tendencies. And finally, the plot hook. This is one of the funky ones. He is slowly becoming a plant. Now, I don't know how I would describe that to my players, that he is slowly becoming a plant, but there it is. I believe they have a form of ichor that acts as blood. Yes, air elementals. They can breed with humans and a few other races in D&D after all. That's how you get Genasi when it's not just a monk or something that's gone beyond mortality. It's Bob. Is Bob a person that's turning into a plant as well? But yes, quite the character. He got in an argument with a bush and was cursed for his trouble. That could very well be the case. An argument with a bush, a dryad, or something along those lines could have cursed him to slowly becoming a plant, or perhaps some sort of infection has taken over. So that's this site. I can hit generate as many times as I want, and each time will come up with a new character, randomizing all of these different traits. Now, the one thing that's unfortunate about this particular website is that if you're sticking with a particular race, for example the dwarves, and you hit generate a few times, you'll start to notice that the names, you notice the same ones popping up over and over. So if you want a grand variety of names, then this website will get you started, but I would rather go to other websites to get more names that I can pick from so that I get a little bit more variety. So, NPC generator, that's the first link. Let's go on to the next one. Ah, yes. This is the magic item generator. This is on a website called Kasoon.com for Dungeons & Dragons. These particular items are often fashioned after the D&D rules, but you can also use them for Pathfinder and so on and so forth. Welcome Jack Hunter and Drakon X3. Sorry I joined late, so I don't know if you mentioned it, and not to be off topic, but are you also going to cover Warhammer stuff for GSD&D? So, for this is mostly tabletop role-playing games, for example, Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder, but I would love to do another video about Warhammer, perhaps touching on different lore, or different army ideas, maybe from an artistic standpoint. I have many plans, and that's why I called this Tabletop Tips rather than role-playing game tips or something like that. I want to cover all sorts of different sorts of games. So keep posted. Keep a lookout. Anyway, here we are on the Magic Item Generator. And there are many other generators in this particular website, but I found this one to be the most useful. You can see that here we have, right off the bat, a magic weapon, the Effulgent Morning Star of the Undaunted, which is a common weapon apparently. The bearer can use this item to cast the light cantrip on itself at will. While lit, it deals radiant damage instead of its usual damage type. That's rather interesting. Whenever the bearer breaks a grapple, they may choose to push the grappler up to 10 feet away from them as a bonus action. That's interesting. That could be very, very good for somebody that is a paladin or a frontline fighter or even a rogue that just wants to be the scout and needs to be able to get out of grapples very quickly. It also gave us a magic armor. For example, the Garnet Padded Armor, common, reduces fire damage to the bearer by 2. Could be very useful. It's padded armor, so padded armor is a leather type of armor, light armor, so perhaps good for a caster or a rogue or something like that, but reducing fire damage by a flat 2 means that any fire damage of 1 or 2 simply could become 0, which seems good to me. And finally, a magic trinket, the Arc Imp's Skull of Vigor. It is an artifact, so that means artifacts are very, very rare and can only be destroyed in certain ways, which is on the DM to determine. So if you're the DM and you're looking at this, imagine how your players would find these kinds of weapons or items. This particular weapon deals no bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. The weapon attack affects all others within 10 feet of the target. Huh? Huh. The bearer gains a +1 bonus to strength saving throws. It deals no bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. It's a weapon that deals no damage. That's a little strange. Bob is a tree that grew from a guy in Fallout's head and keeps him alive while slowly turning him into a sentient tree thing. That's wild. I haven't played that particular game, so wow. Well, anyway, so as you can see, this particular Skull of Vigor is not very impressive as an artifact, but you'll get those sorts of things from time to time. But let's hit more and see what we get next. The Conqueror's Net is a rare item. While equipping this item, your strength ability score cannot be reduced below 13. That's interesting. So if you have a particular malicious effect or poison or something like that, and you're worried about your strength ability score dropping, that could be a good way to stop that from happening. Isn't that Harold? Is it Harold or Bob? That's a good question. Magic Armor Alarming Half-Plate contains 1d4 unreplenishable charges of the Alarm spell. So that could be very good for early game magic use. Alarm is an excellent spell that gives you a notification, psychic notification if somebody enters a certain area, which is very nice. Feybound Bracers, common. This, the bearer knows the general direction of the closest Fey crossing within a 60-mile radius. That could actually be very interesting for certain campaigns. Fey crossings are where you can enter the Feywild from the mortal plane. So having these bracers could give the players a very easy way to get into a totally other plane of existence. So that is the magic item generator. It is quite interesting. You can hit more many times and get all sorts of effects. Many of these effects are rather unique to D&D. You wouldn't normally find these sorts of effects in the Dungeon Master's Guide or in any of the other books. So I really appreciate that the creators took that extra step of adding a few really neat effects that you can use. So that's the magic item generator. Moving on, we're going to head up to one of my favorite tools that has been growing very quickly here in on this particular website. So this is 2minutetabletop.com, and this is their 2-minute token editor. So let's open this up very quickly. You can see there's some instructions of support the creator, and I do recommend if you use this website, go ahead and support the creator of this website and many of these other websites that I'm going to showcase, because they put in a lot of effort into these sorts of things. It takes time. So the 2-minute token editor, you may have an idea of what this does just by the symbols that we have on the screen. We're going to open it up. Okay, so first it will have us choose a token. And you can see that there are many tokens by Hammer the Shark, goblins, wargs, dragons even, all sorts of different things. David Wilson has made his own style of tokens. You can see there's some catfolk in here, a beholder, skeletons, a pack mule, it seems, a variety of other creatures, lizard folk, kobolds, and other things, demons, elves, all the way down, many different kinds of creatures, Halloween monsters, a witch on a broom, a werewolf, a ghost, various heroes with all sorts of different designs, mostly dwarves and humans, sea monsters even, so you have some shark people, some eels, and so on and so forth, and then greenskins, and what's interesting about these is that they're facing the other direction from the others, so a good adversary, perhaps. But let's find an interesting one. I'm going to go over to these ones by David Wilson. I've been using these quite a lot. There's a large variety of them, and David Wilson has been adding more and more as the months go by, which I really appreciate. And there's a good breadth of them. So let's take... Let's take this this little kobold rogue, it looks like, or lizard folk rogue. And you can see it opens up this different editor, and it puts the icon in a grassy field, perhaps to emulate its area. You can choose for it to be a sticker with the white background, for it to have a shadow where it has a small circle at the bottom, or to have no base at all. And you can even affect that the background of that sticker. So if I click here, I can choose any color I like, and it will change the background of that sticker. So there's some orange, some green, and it's the same thing for all of these different attributes on the side. So let's keep the sticker white. That's a good outline color. Flare, you can see, is all categorized under one drop-down. So if I change this top one, it will change two different things. So let's say that we change this to a green. So let's take a bright green and then make it a little darker. There we are. And then let's take this A, There's B and A here. Let's take this A1 and make it a little bit more blue. And you can see, yes, the horns at the very top of the head are turning blue on this particular icon. Style is very likely a small... Yes, okay, so this is the chest piece of this particular creature. So let's make it red so that you all can see that easily. The accent... Yes, okay, so that's the shawl and the pants on this particular icon. And depending on the icon, it will be different. These things will be a little bit different based on what kind of icon you have. Paint. Let's see what paint is. Ah, some markings across the face. So let's make that like a blood red, perhaps. And then the body itself. So in this case, I imagine it will be the skin of the lizard. We can make it like a nice blue. So we have a little blue kobold with some green and orange clothes and some red markings across the face. Very, very easy to use. I can then hit save, and then it will save that to my desktop as a nice PNG with a transparent background anywhere that there is not the sticker or icon. There's some other settings here. The palette, you can reset it, save it, or load it. There's some help information if you need it, and so on and so forth. And, yeah, my changes will not be saved. That's fine. And I can do that with any of these creatures. So let's go to these heroes here. The heroes that I rather enjoy. There's a samurai. A samurai with all sorts of different armor. Let's make his armor golden, like this. Yes. I like gold armor after all. I'm wearing some myself. So there's a nice warm gold. His body, let's give him perhaps a nice skin tone around this range here. That seems appropriate. Flare is the rim of the armor, so let's make that maybe black. A nice dark, almost bee-type armor, black and yellow. And then his hair, let's have his hair be a brown color, like that. Boom, I have made a samurai. It did not even take me 2 minutes. It took me perhaps a couple of seconds. Oh yeah, I love this one. I really do too, James. Thanks, Lex. Sorry, it's been a while since I played the Fallout game. Yes, indeed. This site came in super handy for making MI tokens for our current D&D campaign. Excellent, excellent. I'm very happy to hear that. Like I said, I really enjoy this campaign. I like my players to use it to also create kind of a cohesive group. If everyone uses the same token generator, then everyone looks like they belong together. And they stand out from a lot of other tokens that you might find online for your online games if you play them. And we'll get to that in a bit later. You can see that Roll20 is one of the sites that I have on this as well. So that's 2 Minute Tabletop, the 2-minute token editor. Moving along, we're going to go to this, and I'll say this again, this is good for players and DMs. It's good for making bosses that stand out from the other tokens, and excellent for players that wish to have a little bit of extra flair and control over the kind of token that they have. Anyway. So, moving on to a device that's really good not only for DMs, but I think for storytellers as well. This is from watabo.itch.io, and this is the Medieval Fantasy City Generator. There are many other generators that Watabo does, and I encourage you to search through his collection. But this one in particular has been really excellent in creating cities quickly and efficiently, and giving them different sorts of flavor. So you can see that there is a bunch of options up in the top right. Small, medium, large, that determines the size of the city that you're working with. So if we take a small one, you can see it gives me a small little wall and only a handful of buildings. Medium gives me a rather large wall and several districts. And then large gives me a sprawling city, sometimes with water features, rivers, all this farmland, which is very appropriate, and a large fortress on the side as well. And there's much more that we can control about this stuff. Obviously, it has name generators that add a name to the city itself and names to the various districts. So, for example, this is Maron Quay with a fortress and Forlorn Bridge, Newport and Kingsport, and Purplefield. All excellent names, but if you wanted to, you could click on any of the text and type in your own. So let's take away Maron Quay and type in Dragonsville and hit enter. Boom. Done. Now it's Dragonsville. And when you're done with any of these, you can export it into a PNG to share with your players for your in-person game or on your online game or however you wish to play. You can also warp, which means that I can take this cursor, this little green circle cursor, and you can see as I move it around the map, it will begin to highlight various points that control the shape of the map. The farmland, the roads, the river, and I can take any of these and drag them, and it will automatically start to shape the city. So I can bring this roadway out here. I can make the curve of the river perhaps more dramatic, a winding river that enters the city. I can make the fortress larger with different castle walls that... E. I have made a fortress that looks like a giant E. And this gives me a whole lot more control over what the map looks like. Oop. You'll get little things like this. For example, this name of the district has become a circle for some reason because of the way that this was worked. So play around with it. If you don't like something, you can, I believe... you cannot use Control-Z. I certainly tried. But if something like this happens and you really don't like the look of that, simply go back to Menu and Apply, and then click on this where it says Forlorn Bridge, and you can just delete it. And then it'll go away. Just like that. There are lots of other options within this as well, depending on the style that you wish to show your players. Hey, I gotta go. If I come back and you're still on, I hope I'll hope back in to watch. But if not, hope the stream goes well. Thank you very much, Jack Hunter 000. I appreciate you being here. And of course, this video will be online, uploaded onto YouTube after the fact. So if you would like, feel free to watch it there afterwards. I hope to see you later. All right, but anyway, we have style. So the palette, for example, it has a variety of different colors that you can choose from. The default, there's also a night scheme, blueprint style, where everything turns blue and inky, sanguine, which makes it a maroon color, ancient, which gives it a nice parchment tone, and all sorts of other options besides. There's also annotations. You can change how things are labeled. You can change how things are hatched, how many, the types of buildings that will appear, the types of towers that will appear, the types of water. I really recommend that you play around with all of these because there are so many options to give you the kind of map that you want for your city. It's very, very handy. So play around with it. Hop onto that website and play around with it when you get a chance. And again, when you're done, hit export and you can save it as an image. So that is the Medieval Fantasy Generator. We're going to go on to another map making tool that I have fallen in love with. And this is called Inkarnate. It's from inkarnate.com, I-N-K instead of I-N-C. And this is a free tool, but there is a premium service. I recommend the premium service. It is not very much. It is a subscription. And so if you are a DM setting up a campaign, like a large campaign map, you can create the campaign map within the time period of the subscription, cancel your subscription, and so on and so forth. But even the free tool has some nice options, and I've made an account here. You can see it has an upgrade to Pro and so on and so forth. I'm going to create a map just using the free assets. You can see that there's other things here for fantasy battle maps and so on and so forth. I'm going to go to the Fantasy Regional HD, the high definition. This is excellent for making a realm map or a large city map or anything like that. So we're just going to, you can see that obviously the Pro Edition has many other options, but we're going to stick with the landscape 40 by 30 tiles. Not a big deal. Initializing, and there we go. Your current browser is not officially supported by Inkarnate. You may not get the optimal experience. Yes. So I am using Microsoft Edge for this. I'm going to continue to use Edge, and we'll see how well it goes. Here's hoping. But you can see it gives you a large surface area to work with, blue ocean to start with, and I am simply going to take this edgy shape tool. I honestly don't know where to begin, so I am going to begin with the default. It gives you an edgy shape tool to create a landmass, right? You can change various features about this, and we're just going to start. You can see as I start painting, it creates kind of a rough edge that I can work with later. I'm just going to fill in a large, perhaps a crescent-shaped sort of landmass like this. It will then resolve into a landmass that has a nice border around it, and I can continue from there. I can then go into the brush tool and change this texture, which is very, very useful. So I can open this catalog, and you can see wherever there's not a red star is a free asset. So let's say I want just a nice grassland sort of area. I can take the brush tool, select the grassland, and begin painting in the area. Now, this may not seem particularly interesting at the start. So I'm just going to paint in this area. It will resolve into that. And now I have perhaps a nice long coastline and a nice forested area. But now the interesting part begins. I can add stamps. When I click this tool over here, the little rook-looking icon, it opens up with a large variety of stamps. So let's open that up real quick. Again, many, many pro options, but there's a few nice options for the free tool as well. I can add various buildings, for example, this fortress. Let's go ahead and add a fortress. I can also change the size of this, I believe. Where do I change the size? Is it here? Yes, size. Excellent. So I can bring this size down, and now I have a nice little fortress that I can stick right there. I can rotate the fortress. I can change the size of the fortress even on the map, and all sorts of other things as well. So I'm just going to leave the fortress there and go ahead and add some more stamps. So let's add some trees. Let's move the size of the trees up a little bit, and I can just start adding trees all in a dense forest like this. It's set to random stamps, so it will choose randomly from the various trees that are in this selection to create this forest, add a little bit more variety. So I have a nice big forest here. Then I will add some mountains. There was a good set of mountains right off the bat. Let's make them nice and big, and I can add a whole mountain range right along the back. Now, if I put a mountain here, it's going to look a little bit interesting, but that's okay. I can take the selection tool and move that mountain wherever I like. If, for example, this fortress ends up behind the mountains, for example, like this, where the top of the fortress is faded into the mountains, all I have to do is right-click it again and move up a layer. And that's how you can control what things appear above or behind other features. So, mountains, what other things do we have in here? We have a town that we can throw in next to this forest. We have a city that we can place outside of the fortress. And then there was a mine shaft as well. Yes, a mine shaft that we can place there in front of the mountain. And so on and so forth. Then there's even text tools. Path tools is another pro feature, and so on and so forth. Notes, grids, other things. Another website that I just encourage you to play around with. Play around with the free version first before you decide to upgrade. I can add a boat. I can add a dragon floating above the mountains. Oops, and here we have an example that the dragon fell behind everything else. So let's move that up a layer and up a layer again, and now it is ahead of the mountains. And you sharpen this up, you continue working on this map, and you will have your own fantasy map, your own cities, your own towns, and all sorts of different things. I can also create a road. Let's say if I take the brush tool again, and I take this orange shape, and I can reduce the size of the brush. I can make a road just with a different color of brush. A road perhaps going into the forest, going up to the fortress, going out to the mine, and going down to the dock. Your imagination is the limit. It makes making large maps very, very easy. Let's take a look. Let's see if I can go back. I'm not going to save. Explore. Loading maps. Ah, yes. Here we go. Perfect. In here, under Explore, you can find other maps that players have created. Many of these people are much more creative than I am and have much more experience with this particular thing, this particular tool, this one. But look, this is the sort of thing that you could create for your Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder Adventure. This one is called Zodriast. I like it. Let's take a look at another. This one is a great circular city. They've created a fortress with walls and put all sorts of homes and other things around it to really give a place for your players to explore. You could conceivably even go in with text and label the different buildings, the church here, or here, a blacksmith, a wizard tower, and all sorts of different things. Let's take a look at another one. There's ships that you can use for seafaring campaigns, if you're boarded by pirates, for example. Welcome. I'm sorry. Welcome, Anob the Chitter. Thank you very much. This does look really cool. And again, all of these links are in the description below if you would like to follow along. All sorts. Oh my goodness. I'm jealous of the skill. Look at this. Avalon. This is fascinating. You have the ice flows at the beginning, at the very north, waterfalls over here, all leading down into deserts, long peninsulas of lush forest, a volcanic region, and all of these have been labeled with numbers, and the key is on the side, so you can see which city is where. So one here is Wellspring, here in this forest, and they've labeled it with all sorts of different icons. There's so much. I could spend hours, and I have spent hours in this particular website. Should Def poke Kinski and let him know? Yes, definitely let your friends know about all these different websites. I encourage it completely. So, moving on from the map makers, let's go to some other tools that are useful for DMs. This was Incarnate, and we're going to close that and go to this one. Now, perhaps one of the most frustrating things for me to do is when a player wishes to go to a library to search up different information. They want to make history checks or knowledge checks, all sorts of different things like that, and you have to come up with an entire library. Not great. Not great. So, they have a random generator for this. It's the random book generator, and this is on dndspeak.com. There are other resources and generators, random potions, random taverns, random diseases as well, but this one has been the most useful for me, believe it or not, because it generates random books. Books that a player could find in a library if they fail their perception check, or their search check, or their investigation check, and find a useless book instead of a useful book. Again, depending on the theme of your campaign, books could be very numerous or they could be very rare and expensive. So let's take a look. Let's generate a book and see what we find. You find a recently written bestiary entitled Loathsome Natives of the Grave, Wonderful Wild. This book gives advice and tactics against a certain type of creature. This book is leafed through, but otherwise good condition. It is written in abyssal marks. It is very plain and unadorned. This book is worth 30 gold points, and it has 144 pages. So, right off the bat, we have a couple things. First, if the player doesn't know Abyssal, they won't be able to read this book. Natives of the Grave. So I imagine that this is undead creatures, knowledge about undead creatures, necromancy, and all sorts of things like that, or perhaps how to combat them. Gives advice and tactics against a certain type of creature. And then, of course, it has a gold value. This could go up and down depending on your campaign, how valuable the books are. Let's generate another one. You find a contemporary guidebook entitled Dusty Chronicles from the Road, Country of Boon and Bounty. This book is meant to give insight about a specific region or landform and the perils that it may contain. This book is leafed through, but otherwise good condition, again. It is written in Orcish, the Orcish alphabet. It has a haughty and authoritative tone. It's worth 20 gold and has 36 pages. So a short book about a particular area. Dusty Chronicles from the Road. Perhaps an orc, a traveling orc, wrote this book on his travels to describe a particular path or mountain, a valley or plains that he explored, and that could explain the nature of this book, giving your player perhaps a little bit of a boost on nature checks and survival checks in that sort of area. Let's do one more. These are rather fun. You find a contemporary biography entitled The Heretical Confessions of the Paladin, published in interest of all. Interesting. This book is an account of someone's life written by someone else. Of course, that's a biography. This book is leafed through, but otherwise good condition. It is written in common speech. It is a portrait of the author on the first page. It's worth 20 gold and has almost 500 pages. So, the heretical confessions of a paladin, perhaps a not very loyal paladin, a failed paladin that a bard perhaps wrote a story about, published in interest of all, perhaps to educate others on the pitfalls of heresy or dark religions, or even just being a paladin on certain dark paths, and the entire biography of that person. It could be, a jumping point for a different campaign to perhaps hunt down the armor or the weapon of this particular heretical paladin for your players, and all sorts of other manner of jumping off points as that. Or it could be an ancient tome that really has no impact on your campaign and just is a red herring for your players. That's the benefit of a lot of these different websites and random generators. Whew, okay. We're getting to the end of this particular stream, but there's a couple other websites that I want to cover. The first one, I'm going to skip ahead one and go to the Fantasy Name Generators. This website is so extensive and so expansive that even D&D Beyond uses the generators in here for their name generators for their player character sheets. So let's take a look. There are many, many different generators. Other generators has a variety of things: haikus, currencies, dice, emblems, description generators for gods and goddesses, diseases, battlefields, pop culture for various things that already exist, Diablo and Fairy Tale and Marvel Comics, other names, artifact names, dinosaur names, language names, place names for countries, coral reefs, orphanages, outposts, real names. So these are names inspired or brought over from various languages like Cornish or Indonesian or Ottoman, Swedish, and so on and so forth. And fantasy names, probably the most commonly used section of this website, I would say, at least for me. Because you have aliens, you have animal species, you have bird folk, elf names, harpy names, naga names, supervillain names, sylph names, lamias, ghosts, all sorts of different things. If you click on any of these, for example, dwarf names, it will take you to a page just like this. It'll give you a short description of the generator, and will immediately throw you into a list of names, like Vorlir Nightsword, or Vordok Opaljaw, or Thelgarlig Leathermane, or Lamreen Golden Chest, and so on and so forth. And you can choose to get male names, or you can choose to get female names, and every time you click either of these buttons, it will generate a bunch more names for you. Excellent for inspiration for your characters, inspiration for your player characters or NPCs or other things like that. Click these as many times as you like. It goes on and on. It really does. There's so many names. It's really hard to keep track of. And if you don't like the names that you get there, you can open another generator. So one thing that I wanted to mention about these as well, let's say that you are creating a fairy NPC or a fairy player character or whatever for a story or a campaign or whatever you would like to do. So let's say you're making a fairy. Well, I've clicked on Dryad Generator, right? Just because the generator says a particular race or creature or name doesn't mean you can't use those names for other things. For example, this is a Dryad name generator. There we go. And it has a lot of plant-themed names, plant-inspired names like Berifa and Olive and Cinnamonia and Aldis, all sorts of things like that. But these could very well be names for fairies or elves, wood elves, for example. And again, click on it as many times as you want. It'll generate tons and tons and tons of names. If you combine this name generator with the NPC generator that we showed off earlier in the stream, you could really create a lot of different characters. And really, there's no limit. You could flood your characters with all sorts of NPCs using various names and aspects of other characters. So that is the fantasy name generator. Play around with this, see what kinds of names you come up with. I highly recommend it, and it even comes recommended and is used by Dungeons & Dragons for 5th edition. So finally, our last website, our last resource that I use is Roll20. Now, I am not going to log into this website. The main reason is it's huge. There is a lot to go into. There is so much to do in this website to create a campaign, to create your characters, and to play a game within Roll20. I would much rather create a different video dedicated to Roll20, and I may do that in the future. But what I will say for now is that this website has been invaluable for letting me and my players play online regardless of distance, regardless of any particular world events or pandemics. As long as you have an internet connection, you can use Roll20. I don't know if it has any particular recommendations on your computer capacity or ability, but it's simple. It's easy to use. There's a lot of click and drag. There are various tools and UI adjustments that they've made over time to make things easier for both DMs and players alike. There's a character mancer for many of the popular role-playing games like D&D and Pathfinder, so your players can simply click along to make various choices for their character to create their character sheet, which makes it a lot easier than clicking and doing all the various math on your own. So new players, it's very new player friendly. If you are an experienced player, still very, very useful. It gives you a lot of control over the types of character sheets you use. You can upload your own maps, you can upload your own tokens, and all sorts of things like that. It's great. It's great. One thing I will say is that I do know that in the past there was an incident that caused a lot of drama. It had to do with the admins of this website. I personally don't know the resolution of that, but I am looking at this as a tool, not as a political sort of thing. As a tool, this is a great website, and I can't recommend it enough. It'll run on almost any computer. It does not run on mobile devices, though. It also almost requires premium to get the full functionality, but it's worth it. Yes, so I have... my players have gifted me premium for my campaign and have even gone so far as to gift me the various source books. The D&D 5th edition source books plug into the Roll20 website, if you get them through this website, that is, and it allows you to click and drag enemies and other NPCs, and it automatically gives you their various stats and abilities with no effort on my part. It is incredibly handy. It also gives the players a lot of information on feats and other information, classes and professions and spells and all sorts of things like that, so that they have an easy reference to go to if they have any questions. And that takes a lot of pressure off of me to provide that information, and a lot of pressure off of them from finding that information on other websites. Roll20, I recommend it. Give it a try. Try it for free first. See if you like using it. There are a large variety of free assets, including maps and tokens. They're a bit limited. So one thing that I would recommend is to go to the marketplace. One thing that I like to do is to add maps and tokens to my campaigns to give me as the DM a lot more ability in creating compelling maps for my players to explore through. And there are a lot of artists that have been in this website contributing various tools and assets that you can use. Most of them will cost anywhere between $2 and $20, so you know, whatever your wallet can bear, keep that in mind. I wouldn't go too crazy. There are many things, many tools that can represent lots of different things. For example, if I go to maps, I can go to all maps, for example. Let's find one that I would perhaps use. Jungle temples, building interiors. Here we go. Let's take a look at these maps here by Tehox Maps. It's a map pack 2020 Volume 2, whatever that means. but it contains a variety of different ocean, coastal, river maps. Not bad, not as many maps as I would like. Different artists will charge different prices for their maps, so definitely keep that in mind as you look through here. So that map pack seems a little light for $5. Let's take a look at another one. Endless Dungeons, okay, by Meditating Monkey. Spelled with a U instead of an O. So, here we are. So here we go, $5, but already you can see it has more maps, and it comes with a huge variety of assets that you can add into the maps. Rocks and ropes and barrels and tools that have been left behind. It has mine tracks, so these sorts of tiles will allow you to create your own map if you're a dungeon master, to plug these in next to each other almost like Legos, or any other sort of, or Minecraft even. Rail tracks, dead ends, all sorts of different things. It even has the rail tracks as separate assets on their own, and the tunnels as separate assets on their own. This is a map pack. Oh, and it keeps loading. This is a map pack that I would recommend because it allows you a lot of ability, a lot of customizability, and a lot of options for your maps. So you can make mines, you can make beast dens, you can make workshops, all sorts of different things with this map pack. This sort of thing I would recommend if you were to peruse the various websites and so on and so forth. Now, many of these artists have a particular style. So if I go to Meditating Monkey, he will have his own page for his creations. And if you want to stick to his particular style, or if you like him as an artist, then you can continue to purchase other things from him. So, for example, he has a minecart, carts and wagons. Let's take a quick look at this one. Yes, so excellent. So a large variety of wagons, including one that looks like a leopard print, boxes and crates and barrels and chests, and it goes and goes. Oh my goodness, it goes and goes. So if you wanted some variety for your merchant caravan or something like that, you could add this to your site as well. And when you sign in, all of this is available for you within the website. Now, I'll say again, I am not sponsored by any of these artists. I'm not sponsored by any of these websites. I genuinely believe that Roll20 is a good website, a good tool to use, and there are many, many artists that can supply all sorts of assets for you to use as a dungeon master or game master, or as a player as well. One nice thing is that it does allow you to gift things to other players or other game masters. So if you are a player and you want to support your dungeon master because he's doing a good job and, you know, working hard to create a different campaign for you, then this is a way that you can do that. You can gift assets or other things to that account via their email. So take a look, make an account. The account is free. Make some maps, make some things, play around with it, learn all of these different tools, right? And again, all of these links are in the description below. I hope that you have enjoyed this particular stream. Hello, Mogma0. I appreciate you being here, though we're actually about to wrap up the stream here. But you'll be able to watch back. All of this will be uploaded on the YouTube channel very shortly, and you'll be able to review all of these different resources on your own. So whether you're a DM, a writer, a player, I really hope that you've gained something from this stream. I really hope that this has been helpful for you to give you some insight into different tools that game masters can use, and I hope you enjoyed. Most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the stream, the video. So, thank you again, my friends, for joining me, and farewell until the next stream. The next stream will be a Minecraft stream where I will enter the Nether. And I am very, very excited for that because it is the 1.16 Nether. There are many different blocks and biomes that they've added, and I cannot wait to get my hands on some of them to add them to my stash. Yay, thanks for all the great resources. You're very welcome. Before I end, are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions about any of the websites that I've gone over? I could answer a couple as I'm here. Of course, if this is after the stream, then feel free to post any questions in the comments below, and I will pop in and answer as many as I can. Also, it would be great if you watch this video. If you have other resources, other websites that you would like to share, please feel free to comment those below for other players. We can make this a nice, handy resource that game makers and players can come back to to use those resources and bookmark them or whatever. Whatever people do with computers, you know? I'll give chat a moment if they have any questions. It doesn't look like it. That's okay. I today have been recovering from a very, very minor doctor's appointment that I had the other day. I had to get an ingrown scale removed, and that was rather painful. But I'm rather impressed by human medicine now. They had painkillers, and they were very clean and very considerate. Very, very polite, despite having to work with a small dragon. I was very impressed. Certainly humans have come up with a level of professionalism that doesn't have any of the hoity-toity rituals, let's say, that nobles did in the past. That was great. Thanks for the resources. I appreciate your comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming along. So, with that said, I will go ahead and wrap up the stream. Thank you once again for joining me, everyone, and I hope to see you all again soon.